I'm Adam Searle. Here at LocusHarmony, I want to help you take control of your happiness. That's why in this video, I'm talking about abundance. So this video is about abundance. You might have heard the term. I'm going to explain what I think it means here, and I don't like to pre-plan these videos too much, but I have got a rough idea of where it's going to go. So it's probably going to first talk about abundance and how I've been learning to grow and nourish that in my own life, in myself. And then I think I'll go on a little bit to talk about letting go versus control, maybe like a need for control. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. So as I mentioned there in the introduction, abundance is something that I'm working on, if you like, in my own life. It is a concept that I've known about for quite some time, many years, but it's only recently that I've actually taken the time to try and increase abundance in my life. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that I'm getting more stuff. Abundance doesn't mean that there's an excess of stuff. It means, at least that's not what it means to me. The definition of the word, sure, but abundance in this sense, and in the sense that I've heard it used, is more an overflowing from yourself. So when you have more than you need, that's abundance. So in a sense, abundance is a mindset. But what I've been finding going through this process and experiencing in myself is that it's more than that. Abundance is it's a feeling, it's an emotion almost, and it comes from the heart. And when you feel abundant, you feel great, and you're grateful for everything that you have. So it's a very positive state of being. That's probably another way of putting it. Abundance is a state of being where you're not trying to acquire more stuff. You have everything that you need emotionally. And I think if you have everything you need emotionally, physical things can kind of take a second place, and they're not so important anymore. Now, I've always understood, partly from a part of me that always seemed to know, but also from trial and error, that if you're always trying to get the next thing, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the next car, the next job, trying to go on this next trip that you've planned, a holiday, the next lover, anything, literally anything that you think that you want. That thing will never bring you true happiness. The only thing that can bring you happiness is being here, now, the present moment. That's where we always are. And if we're always future focused, even when we acquire those things, if there is some satisfaction, which often there isn't, it's short-lived, and then it's just this repetitive cycle of then trying to get something else. And it's not to say that you shouldn't strive for things, and this is where it's probably going to lead in a little bit into letting go versus taking control, and I'll cover that more in a minute. But it's not more that you shouldn't strive for things. Goals are good, and it's good to work towards things, but not from a place of neediness, not from a place of needing them, just by being able to let go and be grateful for what we already have. That's where true happiness comes from, in my experience. So yeah, this is where I think the concept of abundance crosses over with this idea of letting go, as opposed to holding on and trying to take control. There's a potential confusion or contradiction here in this message, which I'm in the process of explaining, which is that we need to believe and understand that our actions do shape our lives, and that in that sense we are in control of our happiness. Now, at the same time, we also need to not control things. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit to try and make sure that the point is clear. It's important to understand that actions we take and the way we feel and go about our lives will influence what we attract into our lives. If we're positive, more positive things will happen to us. And you can understand that or interpret that in different ways. The simplest way is that you will just notice the positive in things if you are more positive. Whereas if you've got this negative mindset that you're carrying around, people will bounce off that. Interactions with other people, you can quite quickly see on another person, from their posture, from their facial expression, what mood they're in, what energy they're carrying. There's a lot that you can read in a person. And if you're someone that's carrying a negative feeling around with you, other people that are positive, they might not even notice that, but if they do, they're probably just going to just go right around you. And conversely, people that are also in a negative space will probably be drawn to you. So that's just an example in a practical situation, how just interacting with other people, if you're positive, if you're negative, you're going to attract more of that to you. But I believe and I feel that it runs deeper than that, and that we're kind of sending this energy out in ways that we don't really understand, because when life is going well, you'll get a string of things that go well, and it's not always because of the way you're looking at them, although that is going to play a big part in it as well. Now, this doesn't mean we should try and control life or impose our ideas onto it. There's a balance to be obtained here between letting go of beliefs and our ideas that get in the way of letting kind of the natural process of things happen. We need to be able to release our ideas, the things that we are holding on to about the way things should be, the way things ought to be, maybe things that we expect, things that we deserve. If we can let go of those things and potentially a need for control, you'll find that those things are actually hindering your potential happiness, and they're getting in the way of things that are already there that are amazing. That's why abundance can really help with that process. It kind of is that process. And a bit later on, or I'll just mention it now, the way that we can welcome abundance into our life, that feeling that I mentioned earlier, where it's like a happiness that comes from quite a wholesome, deep place. It's the only way I can describe it. But in order to nurture that feeling, just nurture gratefulness. And the way I've been doing that is every morning when I wake up, I think of things that I'm grateful for. Now, you've probably heard this before, but it's an extremely powerful process, and I recommend that you try it, because it really can change your life quite drastically. Because what is life if not the way that we feel and the things that we experience? And so when you wake up, it might take a little while to remember the routine. I have a couple of things that I do in the morning in terms of these kind of meditations, if you like that sort of thing. And I sometimes find that when I wake up, I'm not, just observing my thoughts and my feelings. For whatever reason, sometimes when I wake up, there is that, I guess it's a habit, it's something from my past, but there is that kind of initial thought of it's not like, I wouldn't say it's overly negative, but it's not a positive thought. And then by going through this process of gratefulness, it's reshaping how I wake up, which reshapes how the day unfolds. Because once I set that level of gratitude, I carry it with me through the day. What I'm really saying there is our perceptions that we carry into each moment, each new situation. We go forward and we don't see things as they really are. We carry with us everything that has happened to us in the past. You it's unavoidable in that sense that we're going to prejudge the situation when we're doing that. People that in one way remind us of someone that we know, we infer a lot more onto that person when that could be the only similarity. And it's not even just people, it's places, it's things. And if you have been in a rut for a long time, whenever you go into a new situation, you just expect it to be rubbish like every other situation, because why wouldn't it be? So how do we change that? How can you go from a place where you're expecting things to be bad, and if you're watching this video and you're thinking that, maybe you don't think it, but maybe you're realizing, oh, I guess that's what I do, because yeah, I don't expect that it's going to be good. I don't expect that things are going to be great. I would say that the best thing you can do is just practice being present. Now that's going to be hard at first, because as I know, the bad stuff that you're carrying with you, you have to release that, and that's a process, and it will come out. And you have to trust in that process. You have to trust when you're feeling bad and you're present, that you're releasing that. Now, that doesn't mean that always good things are going to happen, and if something bad happens, you're not going to feel bad. It means that we don't cling on to that. It means that when the bad stuff happens, we're much more accepting of it, and the suffering in that sense goes away, and we don't hold on to it and then carry it with us into our future. So this is how we really learn to take control of our happiness, by letting go of the way we need things to be and letting them be as they are, and nurturing this gratitude, which it comes anyway. It's not hard work in that sense. You just do this. You just remind yourself of things that are good, and you'll just start to notice them. Because if you're feeling bad, I'll almost put money on the bet that you're doing the opposite. So your habit pattern is reminding you of things that aren't good. You know, for instance, if the weather outside isn't fantastic, it's your brain, and if you're in a bad place, might focus on that. Whereas if you're in a good place, maybe the weather is awesome. Like this winter, I've really been enjoying the cold, because it reminds me how present I am when I go outside and the cold hits me. It's like, wow, I'm present. And it's just an example there of how you can see things in completely different ways, and what you focus on is really what you feel. So another example of this, maybe you're not in a negative headspace, maybe you're almost in a positive one. So for instance, sometimes I expect certain things of myself. Maybe I've set a goal. Maybe I feel like I should just generally be doing more with my life. Maybe I'll look at someone else who's done more by my age, those kind of things. As soon as I'm able to release those ideas, a peace comes. Now, those things aren't bad, goals aren't bad in themselves, but it's about how you use them. So I'll give a story as an example for me, because what I want this story to get across is how we don't always need to hold on to those goals. They have a time and they have a place, and it's good to be motivated and it's good to work hard, I think. But at the same time, if there's something that you're missing out on, if that's the mindset you're always in. So here's the story. It was when I was traveling in Australia. I was there on my own, and I was looking for a job. I hadn't been able to find a job for a little while in this new town that I was in, near the Gold Coast, a little bit south. And I was staying in a house, and my days mainly consisted of I'd apply for a few jobs. I might walk out into the town, hand out a CV or two, and then I would do whatever. I'd probably go for a surf if there was surf. I'd walk around, and I was actually really happy at the time. But there was still something, I think, because I couldn't find a job, I in a way I blamed myself a little bit, and I was carrying that with me. Now, one day I went for a trip. I just drove up into the mountains or the hills, and I didn't really know where I was going. I was just exploring, and I found myself, I don't really know what they're called in Australia. In England we call them national parks, but it's kind of this area of natural beauty that's kind of open to the public. I guess the road just kind of ended there. I was driving for a while, and there was a car park, so I parked and I went for a walk, and it was a lovely place, beautiful place, kind of, foresty. And I walked up the path, and then there's a river that comes down, and it's quite a shallow river, so much so that it's deep in places, deep-ish. People were swimming here and there, but I walked along the river, up the river. It was shallow enough to do that. You could walk along rocks and sometimes along the side of the river, until I got to a very quiet place where I hadn't seen anyone for 20 minutes or so, so reasonably remote. I couldn't see or hear anyone. And I just sat down, and I just found myself listening to the sounds that were around me, the sounds of the river, the sounds of, there's lots of wildlife. I don't know if you've ever been to anywhere like Australia, all kinds of birds. It's quite loud, but it's not overwhelming. There's a kind of harmony almost to it. There's a balance to it all, and it's hard to describe how I felt, but I was just very present, and I was just listening to these sounds, and I found myself in a state of peacefulness, and almost accidentally I released these ideas, and I realized that I was being hard on myself. That was a really interesting experience for me that I hope highlights kind of what I'm getting at, because that feeling, it's kind of self-revelationary in a sense, that it reveals to you when you let go what you were holding on to. Another interesting point here was that I walked back down once I finished this walked back down the river, and on the way out there were some information boards, and it turned out that this place that I was at used to be an old Aborigine site, and there was quite a lot of information about how the Aborigines used to come to this place to connect with nature and listen and be with the forest. Now, that's exactly what I'd been doing, and I wonder if there was something to that. We do have this connection with nature, I think, that we've kind of lost, and maybe that's something that can help you find a place where you can reconnect with nature and just let yourself be in that moment, and just listen to the sounds, or just look around, whatever is there, just be with that moment. And hopefully that will help you let go of some of these things. I recommend that you try this anyway, because I didn't know that, I didn't feel bad. I felt good day to day here in Australia during this time that I mentioned. I was really enjoying my life at the time, and I was really quite grateful for the situation I was in. I could walk down to the beach, I could surf. It's beautiful weather almost every day, surf very consistent. And it wasn't until I went to this place in nature and I wasn't actively doing anything. I just listened, and it was then that I realized, I've been carrying all of this with me. And so just give yourself a chance to be present. If you can't get out into nature, you don't have to do that. Just be present where you are, and that will have a similar effect. But I personally find that nature can really help us reconnect in that sense with our kind of inner self, that peacefulness that's there, that we pile expectations and ideas on top of. As I kind of touched on earlier, there is a balance to this. I'm not advocating that you just don't do anything, that you don't have any ideas or goals for the future. I'm just saying that they should be kept in check, so to speak. Make sure that they don't take control of your happiness, because you should be in control of that. There is a balance to be found here between, in a sense, doing nothing and then doing something. I think the key thing here is not to overthink it, but to be present and accept what's there. If you're in a place where you need to work hard and you're energetic and you're moving fast, be present with that and do that and achieve and, you know, do a good job at whatever it is you're doing. But then if you're not in that place, don't give yourself a hard time if there's not anything you can do right now that's a positive action towards something that needs doing. Okay, so looping back around to this idea of abundance, it's a gratefulness for what is there. That's kind of how I'm, you know, the theme of this video and how I want to tie it all together. If we let go of our expectations about how we think things should be that ourself, be that external things, then we can really begin to nurture this gratefulness and this abundance. My neighbours have been pretty noisy this whole video. I don't know if you've heard them. Now they've put a TV on really loud, so apologies if you can hear that in the background. But I just want to wrap this video up and just say these things genuinely, they're coming from a place where that feels good. You know, they're coming from something that I want to share, that I hope can help others. You don't need to be in a terrible place. Like I myself, years ago, had really bad depression, and I've learned to, you know, it's an ongoing process for sure, but I've learnt to handle that, and I've understood what I was doing. And this whole channel really is about understanding that you're in control of your happiness, because there were so many days where I was just waiting for things to get better. I didn't understand what I could do. I didn't even really have the belief that I was in control. I mean, I didn't. And that was part of the problem. And if I can just share that belief with you, even that idea, maybe you've never thought of it that way, because I certainly hadn't. It just kind of came to me one day, and that's what I want to share. So I hope the video was enjoyable. I hope that you got something from it. And if you did, subscribe, stick around, like the videos. I do want to grow this channel, and I really want to reach as many people as possible. Because, you know, if I could reach a younger me, that's perfect. But there's people at all stages of life, different ages, and everyone is welcome here. So, yeah, thank you.